right, I legitimately don't know what episode it is. Oh my god, is it the 39th? I think so. This is the 39th. We're gonna hope it's the 39th. I'm not gonna check. We're just gonna say it's the 39th episode of the Running My Mouth podcast. I am your very cold host, Aaron, and allow me to run my mouth for a little bit. It's cold. I don't know what else to say. I need to raise this mic because it's too low. Come on. Just a little bit. There we go. I feel like that's better. I should have done this before I started recording, but I didn't. It's cold. It's been colder, but it is currently still cold. Something that I've come to the realization of in the 2 years that I've been living in my current apartmente is that this place is like really poorly insulated because, back home when I was living in my house at home, it didn't used to get this cold. Also, I think no, that doesn't make sense either because my house growing up was also on a crawl space and the floors were not this cold. I don't know what it is, but the floors, I'm like walking on ice blocks in here. And I don't like to wear socks in the house. Partially because I just don't like wearing socks, and also partially because it's a slip and fall hazard because I have all hardwood floors in this house. So like I have no choice. Well, I mean, I have a choice, but I have no choice but to go barefoot because it's friggin', it's cold and my feet are really cold, but it's either be cold or slip and fall and like hurt myself because I'm apparently ancient and injuring myself is like just so much easier these days. So, it's a hard concession to make, but I just have to deal with my feet being cold. Literally just my feet. It's the only part of me that's cold. And it's not even that cold outside. I think today the high was like 40 something. But because this house is just really poorly insulated and also probably just poorly built, my feet just have to be cold. And even when I was living in an apartment building that was built in like the 20s, it wasn't that cold. Like, I don't even think in the one winter that I had in my old apartment that I even turned the heat on. I think what I did is I just left the air off. And as a result, my electricity bill was like $50 each month that winter. That was a good times. So now my electricity bill is like $100. And on top of that, my gas bill, because I'm thinking about all this because I had to pay my bills yesterday, but my gas bill was like $117. And it's not even doing that good of a job of heating up the house. So it's like, and this structure that I'm living in isn't even remote. You know what? I don't want to talk too much about my housing situation right now. It is on the brain a lot because, in my next to last, not the last episode, but the one before that, I was talking about moving, and I'm still thinking about moving. I put on my calendar the date that I would have to, let my landlords know, hey, I'm about to be out of here. I got storage bins in my Amazon wish list. Like, yeah, we're at that level, and thankfully, actually, I don't even know what I was going to say. There's nothing to be thankful about when it comes to moving. It's, I don't know, moving is stressful, but also I was thinking about it yesterday. I was like, okay, I dealt with moving across state lines, which that one was a whole lot easier because I had like zero furniture. I had this desk and that was about it. That was the only like actual piece of furniture that I had. My mom gave me our old like bar stool chairs that I didn't ask for, by the way. I don't know why she gave them to. Well, I mean, anyways, I still have them. I had these, but these are really small. I mean, they're not really small, but they're small. They can be collapsed. And then I had that desk. And I'm trying to think. I think that was these, I guess 3, because there's 2 stools. Those 3 pieces of furniture were like the only like actual pieces of furniture that I moved to Mississippi with. And then, when I moved from my last apartment, I had less furniture, but also not that much less furniture. So, it wasn't that bad moving. Also, because I had like the 1 month overlap, which I will never do again. That was a mistake. I had that 1 month overlap, so I had some time to actually, move stuff over on my own. And then on my actual moving day, I had a team of people to help me move all my stuff out in pretty much like one trip. So, but I feel like I just have so much more stuff now. And it's stressful to think about, but also I have done this like twice. And then, of course, when I was in college, again, had no furniture. But still, when I was in college, aside from my freshman and sophomore, no, I think I did it myself. No, aside from my freshman and sophomore year, because I didn't have a car my sophomore year, I pretty much moved myself to and from college, which again, that was like like 2 suitcases and like 4 storage bins, and that was all of my belongings. Now it's a little bit more than that. So it's gonna be more of an ordeal, but I feel like I can handle it when the time comes. It's just, the fact that I'll be moving in the summer is gonna suck real hard. It sucked real hard both of the times that I did it, because it was really hot the first time around, and it was really hot the second time around, and it rained, and some of my stuff was on the back of a pickup truck. And I mean, it wasn't raining hard, it was just like sprinkling, but the fact that my stuff got rained on at all was like not great. And also some of my stuff got damaged just a little bit. So yeah, the perks of having a 4-door sedan, which is you have to get people to help you move things. Which, by the way, pickup trucks, they're not great at moving stuff. Because anytime I see a pickup truck on the road and it's like hauling something in the back, like in the bed of the truck, it looks precarious. Like if you can't even, well, I mean, aside from like maybe a king size mattress, if it's not ratchet strapped down, it's a hazard. And there have been far too many times where I've been driving on the interstate behind pickup trucks with unsecured loads where I've become very close to losing my life. And it's like, pickup trucks just aren't good at hauling things, like at all. Like, wouldn't you rather have a van, not even a box truck, which I think for a box truck you need like a specialized license. Maybe, I don't know, I'm not looked into these things, but just like a van that's like an enclosed space with doors that lock and aren't exposed to the elements. Anyways, I'm getting way off of I have a list this week, so I mean, let's talk about it. First things first, might have a couple, maybe just 1 or 2 new listeners since my last episode of the pod, which was an interview with the soon-to-be departing Lacey of Kicking and Clitter Critters. Welcome to, I don't know, there's not a name for my viewers, and I'm not about to make one either, because I don't know, I just don't want to. Welcome to whatever this is, I guess, for the uninitiated. Interviews probably aren't going to be a normal thing. I just want to put that out there. Like, that was kind of a special case. I have done interviews before, but the results of those interviews have been written articles on my website, jacksonunderground.com, and not in the form of audio interviews like podcasts, which, my setup is kind of precarious in that it's, I don't really have the infrastructure to be doing, traveling interviews and things of the sort. In order to record video from my camera, I don't know if this regulation is like still in place. If it is, it's really lame, but there was some regulation, some EU regulation that said for like tax purposes or something like that, that still photography cameras and camcorders are taxed differently. And camcorders, I think, have a higher tax on them. And as a result, a lot of still photography cameras that have the ability to take video cap it at 30 minutes. Which is not great. Now, on my old camera that I very regretfully gave away, which, I mean, it wasn't that great of a camera, but I still wish I, kept it, especially considering who I gave it to. But on that one, it was a Sony camera, and there was a patch. Now, it was kind of a homebrew patch. It wasn't an official Sony patch, but there's a patch you can upload, or I guess some kind of firmware that you can put on the camera that would allow you to record past 30 minutes. And that's what I had on my old camera for Canon cameras, there's like a list of certain models that you can put this like firmware on, and my camera is not on there. I will say this, I have not looked it up since I got this camera, which was about 2 years ago, something like that, maybe 2.5 years ago by now. So that could have changed. Honestly, I do kind of want to look it up. I want to see if it has changed because, time has passed. So I mean, hey, if there is a patch out there that would allow me to record for longer than 30 minutes on this camera, then that would be nice, because in order to record, podcast length video that I do, I have this this is a 50-foot USB cable that I have hooked up to my computer, which is just across the room. And I'm recording on OBS over there. So I have to have a computer to record this, and I don't have a laptop. So therefore I pretty much have to use a desktop because that's all I have. So that's how I record video. My audio setup, on the other hand, is a lot more mobile. I have my lovely Tascam recorder, and I have these microphones, and I have one stand up, what do you call this, mic stand, and I have two tabletop mic stands, and I bought two mics. So I can, two mics, if it's like a one-on-one type of thing, then that's kind of fine. But any more than that, then it's not great, because these kind of microphones, you really have to be right up on them, So it's not an ideal setup, and it worked for me interviewing Lacey, because again, it was just the two of us. But let's say if I hypothetically wanted to interview a band or something like that, I would have to, it would be ideal for me to get, another microphone and another mic stand, but also that would kind of complicate things, because in order to have two microphones recording, I have a splitter. I don't have it with me, but it's basically one output, or I guess input here, and then it splits off into two. And then I just hook up my very short XLR cables into that. And at this juncture, considering that I am wanting to move by the end of the year, I really don't, I genuinely do not have the extra money to be spending on equipment for things like that. So at this juncture, it's not I don't know if you just heard somebody closing their car door. It sounded like it was right behind me. At this juncture, I don't know if it's really feasible for me to be doing interviews very often. I would like to, but I don't know, it's just not super feasible as of right now. That's the only thing. And I know I said at the end of the last episode, if it's feasible and if there is interest in it, which there is interest in it, but it's just the feasibility is just not panning out right now. However, I do know there is at least one place that has space that you could rent for it's podcast recording space that you can rent, and I think that comes with an audio engineer or something like that. I don't know what the terminology would be. A person that would be there to mix everything. But again, that costs money, and I'm trying to save all the money that I can, because I'm trying to get out this place and move somewhere that hopefully won't be more expensive in the long run, even though it probably will end up being. So, that's just kind of where I'm at right now. But I'm glad people enjoyed the last episode. I really enjoyed making it with Lacey. And I'm glad she reached out to me. So I'm glad I agreed to sit down with her, because that ended up being a really good episode. And I'm glad that was something that I could put out in the world. Also, aside from that, speaking of the things that I do on the internet related to music, I put out an article recently, this past Friday, on my website, that is jacksonunderground.com, where I went through some of my favorite pictures of this year. And, like I said in the article, I only started taking pictures in April, but honestly, I think since then, I've gotten kind of better than what I was when I started, and I'm honestly super proud of that. I have my pictures from the last show that I took pictures at, and looking at those and looking at the ones that I took, in April of last year, I could definitely say that there has been an upgrade. Also, I have gotten some new gear. I know I was talking about, I don't have new gear, isn't in the budget. Thankfully, this was a gift. and it's under here. I don't know if I want to reach for it. I don't. I got a flash for Christmas. I did ask for it from my mom. She gave me a Canon flash, and I don't know what the exact model name of it is, but it's like, I feel like if you search Canon flash, it'll be like the first ones that comes up. But it's pretty standard hot shoe mount flash for a Canon camera, and I tried it out at the last show that I was at, and it worked out really well. The only thing about it that was kind of weird. I mean, it's not weird. It does exactly what it needs to do, but it made the room look like it was like completely lit up. And also, if I'm talking about, I might as well, this is a good segue to the last show that I was at. Kicking's Farewell for Now show. I went to that. That was on the 4th, I think. It wasn't, let me see, last Saturday? Not this past Saturday that just happened, because today's Sunday. What's today? The 12th? What is today, actually? It's the 12th. So this was not yesterday, but the Saturday before that was Kicking's Farewell for Now show. My God. That was at CS's in Jackson. It was a very fun night. I thought Kicking sounded like they were at their best. And, it was a great send-off for Lacey, which there will be another send-off. That's this Friday. Yes, it's this Friday. And that'll be the final Critter show that's going to be at the Sunflower Oven. And that'll definitely be something that you will want to be in attendance for. And yeah, this episode is going to come out before that show. So if you're watching on Wednesday, I don't know what date Wednesday is, but you'll know when it comes out because it'll be today's date. If you're watching 2 days from now, will be Clitter Critter's final show. You're going to want to be there. I had the song Stuff We Do on my Spotify Wrapped for 2024 because I was playing the heck out of that album. Oh my God, their EP, rather, that came out last year. And you get sort of an oral history, if you will, of sort of both Kicking and Critters in the previous episode of this here pod. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Let's see who was at the show on last Saturday. So we had Weakhearts, which is a Jackson band that I've seen a couple times here lately. After them was this band called HVY YETI, which I had not heard of before. However, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole when I was editing my pictures that I had taken at that show, and I found this YouTube channel called Jackson MS Music, and I found it just by Googling HVY YETI, because on that YouTube channel are a bunch of like old performances starting from 13 years ago, which I don't know what year that would be, up to, I think about 9 years ago was their last upload. I'm trying to think, when was 9 years ago? I don't know. Quick math is not my thing, but anywhere from 13 to 9 years ago, there are 7,500 videos on this channel of a person, I don't know who it was, they don't really identify themselves in anywhere on the channel. I mean, who knows, it might be in the description of one of the 7,500 videos, but I was not going to sit there and look through all of them because that would have been a lot to go through. I was going to try to scroll through the whole channel just to see what was there, because, I saw some bands that are still around today and some people that are still around doing things today, which I thought was really cool. I thought it was really cool that all that stuff was, preserved on this YouTube channel. And it's not just heavy music that's on there. It's kind of a mix of like anything, pretty much. I don't know, it felt like every performance that happened in Jackson in that time frame. And I mean, judging by the number of videos on the channel, it probably is every single one. But it's broken up. It's not the way that the videos are. It's like each song by each performer. So it's not the entire set. Rather, it's each song. Which, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can see the, I don't know, plus of doing it that way. But also, me personally, if I were doing that, which by the way, I have considered doing something like that. Is it going to happen? Probably not, because that would just be giving myself more work. However, I do see the merits, especially now after I found this other YouTube channel. I do see the merits of doing something like that. It's just, I'm one person. I'm just one girl. I'm just a girly pop with a camera. And, that's a lot for me to do. Because think about it. The reason that I started going to these shows to begin with was just to, like, have fun, let off some steam. And I do like taking pictures at shows because it is still fun. But then I have to think about, I need to get the right angles. I need to make sure, everything's in frame, and I need to make sure it's in focus. And sometimes, because I saw, as I was going through all my pictures for the year, and, writing the roundup article that I wrote, and put out last Friday, I saw that, was it last Friday? I don't know. That isn't this past Friday. A few days ago. Okay. Yeah, anyways, as I was going through those pictures, I was like, okay, I only took pictures at like 16 shows in 2024, and I went to more than that. So, I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Basically, I have thought about, what if I bought a used GoPro, and I would just have to get to the venue early, and I have to find a place to set it up, and then I have to hit record, and I have to make sure that the people moshing aren't knocking it off its stand, or, make sure nobody friggin' steals it. That's a lot. And I think for now, this girl just wants to have fun. And like I said, taking pictures is fun, but there's a whole other level to it where it's okay, there's other things I have to focus on. So yeah, I just, I want to do it, but at the same time, I don't. So that's really all there is to it. Anyways, all that to say, Heavy Yeti was performing at the Kicking Farewell for Now show. It wasn't called that, by the way. I'm just calling it the Farewell for Now show, which, by the way, it's alliterative. Farewell for now. Consider it. Anyways, Heavy Yeti was there. I found a bunch of videos from Heavy Yeti performing at venues that no longer exist, on this YouTube channel, Jackson MS Music. My back itches, good lord. On Jackson MS Music. And I thought it was so amazing that they were there. And also, not only did I find that, and I posted this on my Instagram stories, but of course not everybody watches my Instagram stories. Lacey, in the previous podcast episode, talked about her, I guess, first band that she joined here that was called No Ma'am. And if you go on that YouTube channel, Jackson MS Music, and you search No Ma'am, you will find videos of her performing. It's both her and Sarah Grace, who are in Kicking and Critters, and some other people who I didn't quite recognize, but Lacey told me who they were. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's really cool that that's there. It's not just lost in the abyss. It's it's there, and honestly, I feel because I've talked about this, not a lot recently, but I feel like I've talked about this a lot in the past. But back when I was searching for Burning Windsor, I feel like if somebody would have done a better job of archiving a lot of the Vicksburg bands, because I feel like this is already a spoiler. I mean, it doesn't really have to be a surprise, but I've been working on some things. Just one thing involving a Vicksburg band, and I was searching for other old Vicksburg bands, and I was able to find, the one that was mentioned in the thing that I'm working on, which is needlessly vague, but it's a lot of the internet is still around. There are still Blogspot blogs that are around. There are still YouTube channels that are around, but none of that stuff is really guaranteed because, I would imagine that most of Burning Windsor's online footprint existed on MySpace, and now MySpace is kind of a broken website, a very large portion of it was deleted in 2018 accidentally, and there's just nothing we can do to restore it. There is at least one website called Lost MySpace that archived a lot, but definitely not all of the music that was on MySpace. And, to this day, there are just some Burning Windsor tracks that are just lost. Let's see, only 4 tracks from the Ashes are available online because they're on this website called Reverb Nation. And the others are just lost unless, I can find somebody who had the CD, which, I mean, good luck with that. And, there are some aspects of the band that are still around. I did not. Okay, well, I mean, I had their show vlogs. I have all of those. I was able to find those. And, some other videos from other Vicksburg bands that were, tangentially related, but a lot of that stuff is just gone. It's just like no longer available. And that makes, looking for old stuff, which, I mean, it's not even really that old. We're not talking about stuff from the 80s, which, I mean, the 80s there was no internet. But, this is a band from 2008, 2009, the late 2010s into 2011. You would think, they say the internet is forever, but unless, data centers are able to hold it together, the internet kind of isn't, because people, when they think of the internet, they think of it as like this amorphous cloud of information, but really it's just a bunch of server towers, like, I don't know where all these data centers are, but wherever these data centers are, because, like, imagine, in fact, no, there's a really good example of this that I can use. Okay, so currently, as I'm recording this, there's the wildfires in Los Angeles, and in that kind of the greater Los Angeles area, and I had seen a post, I think it might have been on Blue Sky, either today or yesterday, or maybe it was on Reddit, I can't remember, that said that there was a large collection, like 40,000 documents or something like that, of like old, not necessarily ancient, maybe medieval or like whatever came after that, like esoteric writings from, all those types of things that are just like gone now. They're lost. And I don't know how much of it was digitized, if any of it at all, but data isn't as indestructible as we think, strangely, because, there's stuff like that happens. People talk about the burning of the Library of Alexandria, which I think, I don't know, I watch a lot of YouTube videos on like ancient history because that kind of stuff interests me, and I feel like there's one at some point that I saw that was like, oh, the Library of Alexandria didn't actually burn or something like that. I don't know. But I'm just going to use the Library of Alexandria as like an example, as a metaphorical example, It's like one day this data is just like no longer going to be available because, hard drives, they fail. Solid state drives fail as well, not as much as hard drives did, but they still fail. And then you have to think about all the stuff, like all the data and stuff that was stored on like freaking magnetic tape. And I mean, I think cassette tapes, those are like magnetic tapes, right? I think so. Those have a pretty high failure rate. Things that are stored on old VHSs, those have a pretty high failure rate. I mean, I was working on something really early last year that involved me having to get some VHS tapes like digitized, and some of them turned out really good, but there was one that I got that wasn't in really good condition, and even the digitization of it didn't turn out great. So it's like, there is a lot of really old physical media that, maybe it will continue to last for a really long time, but there is still a time limit on that kind of stuff. And even for non-physical media, which it isn't even really non-physical because it's still stored in like a data center in a place somewhere. It's just not with you in your hands at this current moment. It's just like, I don't know, like in a refrigerated box of servers somewhere, And it's like a lot of this stuff is very prone to like just disappearing. Like that could happen. If someone just hits the wrong button, I mean, I would hope, you would think so. The thing is, you would think so. You would think something like what happened to MySpace wouldn't be able to happen, but it did. Remember the CrowdStrike thing? It was just who knows, pushing an update that wasn't, thoroughly looked through, and it crashed like an entire country, So it's like, digital media and digital like data is a lot more fragile than I think a lot of people realize, and it's a lot easier for it to just become lost or damaged. All that to say, even things like the Internet Archive, which, you would hope that something like the Internet Archive would be backed up into oblivion, but even then, something could happen to whatever the Internet Archive's data centers are, and a large section of internet history could just get wiped out just like that, And it's like, the internet isn't as forever as you would think. However, a lot of things from, the 90s and the early 2000s, and I guess into the mid 2010s, does still exist out there, including videos of Lacey's like first band and Heavy Yeti in, an expanded lineup, because I think when they were performing at the Kicking Farewell for Now show, there's just two of them, whereas I think originally it might have been four, something like that. So yeah, that was really, all that to say is that was really interesting to see, and I'm glad that I got to see it. It's out there if you want to see it, including, a bunch of other bands from the time, a bunch of other musicians from the time. Yeah, it's out there if you want to see it. Okay. Continuing on with the lineup of that show, we had Death Throes from a Star, which, I love Death Throes from a Star. Oh my goodness. It's been a while since I've seen them, and seeing them live is just, it's an experience. It's an experience that you really just gotta experience it for yourself. Like, I have seen Death Throes not really almost every. I've seen them very many times that they've come to Jackson, and let me tell you something, it is a treat every single time. I actually had a thought about this the other day. Not even the other day, yesterday. So, I see a lot of live music, right? And a lot of the live musicians that I see have, recordings out on places like Spotify or Bandcamp. And, I saw a sentiment on the internets, maybe like last week or something like that, being like, oh, people who say seeing bands live is better than the recordings are delusional. I'm like, that I think is very, very heavily dependent on, number one, the kind of music that you listen to, and number two, the kind of bands that performers that you're seeing live. It's like, first of all, there are a great deal of musicians and performers. If we're even just talking about the bigger pop acts, and I'll give Taylor Swift this. The Eras Tour is like, it's an experience. I haven't seen anything from the Eras Tour. I haven't seen the movie. I certainly didn't go see the tour itself. But, that's like an experience. And like, you can listen to the track list from the Eras Tour, but it's not gonna be the same as seeing it live. And like, okay, maybe you're like a regular person and the only seats you can get are like the nosebleeds, which in that case, maybe you are better off seeing the movie. But still, I feel like being there and being around people who are also experiencing this with you, that adds to the experience. And also, with some of the music that I listen to, I'm still gonna say that seeing it live is pretty much always better than the recording. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm just like an audiophile, but which I don't really seriously consider myself to be an audiophile, but also I kind of am. So maybe I could just accept it, like embrace it. Maybe I am an audiophile. So being that I am an audiophile, I do notice that seeing a band live, for the most part, sounds better than the recordings, And it's like, seeing Death Throes live is far better than listening to the album or the EP that they have. And like, I have been listening to it, it's good. The recordings are good, but the recordings just don't really capture the feeling of seeing them live. I have the demo for Measureless Aeons, and while that was more of like a live recording type of deal, and it was just a demo, seeing them live is gonna be better than listening to the demo, like 10 times out of 10 every time. even if they miss a note, don't care. It's still amazing, you know? And it's like, I can't think of a single piece of music that I've both seen performed live and heard the recording of that I thought, oh, the recording is better than this. Like, it's never happened. It has never happened. Another thing, the other side of that coin, people who say that, going to the theater is like overrated, it's too expensive, and I could just watch it at home. And it's like, yeah, I could just watch movies at home. I don't even have to pay for them. I could just go on 123movies.com. But I don't have a 7.1 Dolby surround system or a professional video projector in my house. So, yeah, I'm going to pay to go to a theater that's going to have good sound quality and good picture quality. Like, I really want to know the listening habits, or not habits, but the listening methods and the watching methods of the people who say that, watching something or listening to something at home is going to be better than seeing it live or going to the theater. I will never understand that. Maybe it's because, okay, caveat, I didn't really grow up going to the theater a lot. I can't tell you when the first time that I've been to a movie theater was, to be completely honest with you. So, I must have went at some point when I was young, because I genuinely cannot pinpoint what the first time would have been. But I didn't grow up in a city with a movie theater. Shocker, I know. The nearest movie theater would have been, I think, like 30 minutes away in Prattville. So I didn't really start watching movies regularly. Watching movies in theaters, because we had HBO, we had Showtime, we had Cinemax, we had all that stuff. So, we could see movies that were in theaters like a couple months ago on TV. But again, seeing it on TV is not going to compare to seeing it in a theater. Like, seeing Oppenheimer in IMAX does not compare to watching it on my computer, because I've seen it in IMAX and I've seen it on my computer. And while I did enjoy it both times, I enjoyed it a whole lot more seeing it in IMAX, because I had great video quality, I had great picture quality, it's an experience. So to the people who, this probably isn't going to be my audience, but just in case, to the people out there watching who say that, going to the theater or seeing live music is overrated, do you have a home theater? Do you have, a music listening room? Do you have the space for a Dolby 7.1 surround sound system? Because, if you do, then, like, okay, maybe it got me there. But, like, I don't know, I will never understand that take, like, at all, like, ever, like, no. So, anyways, I'm, like, getting so sidetracked from the main topic here. Anyways, after what I forgot is that they said they were they debuted a new song at a show that I didn't go to. Whatever their previous show from this one was, they debuted a new song. I don't know what it's called, but they played it at this show as well, and let me tell you, oh my god, I love it. I wanted to ask them what it was called, but I was, I'm me, so it didn't happen. But they have a new song, and I hope at some point they're going to record it so that I can listen to it and absorb it into my ears, which again, it's not going to compare to seeing it live, but, it would be nice just to have. Anywho, after... Was Death Throes? Maybe they were. Maybe they weren't. I actually can't remember. No. Yes, they were the last opener. After Death Throes was kicking, and they played some of their hits, and, it was a great show. They gave it their all. They had amazing energy. I got some great pictures of it, and it was, first of all, packed house. The fullest I've ever seen CS's. Like, there were so many people there, which is great, to send them off. I think they had a great send-off show, and I am going to write about it more when the time comes. Or rather, I already have written about it, because I actually started on it after the show had happened. So you will see a more intelligent take about it, like by the end of the month, maybe something like that. I don't know. whenever it happens. Speaking of which, I don't know how I have managed to do this, and I have a feeling that this is going to go away very soon, which is unfortunate. But I have managed to vanquish the foul beast known as writer's block, because I had a number of drafts in my WordPress for Jackson Underground that I have started working on. One of those was my 2024 pictures roundup, which was nice. Another one was an article that I've been meaning to write for literally months, more than 6 months. And I'm like almost done with that, thankfully. And then of course I have more ideas on the way. And honestly, I didn't talk about New Year's resolutions because I was going to talk about it on what would have been the previous episode, but of course that ended up being an interview, so all of that had to get pushed back to now. But again, I don't really like making New Year's resolutions because, if I don't achieve them, then I'm gonna feel bad. But I do have some goals for the year, and some of my, I guess these are all of my goals. I don't think I have any more goals than this. So my goals for this year are, number one, I want to learn more songs on the guitar. So far, I'm going to say I know like one, and this is one that I can play with. Okay, no, I still need to look at the tabs, but I feel like I have adequately memorized this and could play it pretty much, I wouldn't say flawlessly, but more or less seamlessly. And that's This Is a House That Doubt Built by A Day to Remember, which is the first song that I learned to play in full on the guitar. And of course, this is only the rhythm section. I don't know when I'm gonna, graduate to the lead sections of songs. Probably when I get a little bit better in my skills, I would imagine. So I want to learn more songs on the guitar. I want to, get some mastery on Out of Time by A Day to Remember. And I've also started learning Devotion and Desire by Bayside, but that involves switching strings. Because the thing about This Is the House That Doubt Built is that the entire rhythm section, for the tabs that I found anyway, are played on the 3 lower strings. So I pretty much don't even really have to move my hand. Well, I mean, obviously I have to move my hand, but I don't have to move it like up and down. I move it this way, but not up and down. And moving this way is a lot easier for me than up and down. It has become apparent. So, Out of Time and, oh my gosh, I just literally just said the name. Devotion and Desire, that involves up and down changes. So if I can get some mastery on that, then, I feel like I would have graduated a little bit in my skill. But I want to learn a few more songs. Try to find some beginner songs that I actually know, so I can actually enjoy playing them, I know there's beginner songs out there that you can learn on the guitar, I don't know, friggin' Hot Cross Buns or something like that. But I want to play stuff that I would actually enjoy learning how to play. So that's why I'm not starting out with Hot Cross Buns. But anyways, next goal that I have is to read more books and watch more movies in the theater. And so far, I am on it. I am going to talk about the books that I've read. I read one in December of 2024 and one this month, and I'm going to get to those a little bit later. Another goal that I have is to win an Emmy, which it sounds hard, but it's not. Okay, it is hard, to win it. I mean, it's not, I don't know how to phrase this. I mean, it's not, I don't know if I would classify it as being hard, because, I'm confident in my skills to be able to win an Emmy. It's just, the fact that my workplace would have to submit it, and I don't know. I mean, I know we're submitting for other awards this year, but I don't know if an Emmy is gonna be in the budget this year. All that to say. And I mean, I guess I really ought to ask about it because, if it comes, okay, I'm not a member of the Academy though, so I'm not even really sure how that's gonna work. I should have thought all of this out a little bit more, but, I don't really know what my station is going to do when it comes to the Emmys. I know we're planning for other awards as a station, but I really want to submit for an Emmy. However, again, submitting for awards costs money. And if you think about it, as a station, we're submitting for multiple awards, and it's going to build up after a while. So, it might not be in the budget. I hope it's in the budget, and I hope that something that I created can be submitted so that I can get nominated. And maybe I should have put get nominated for an Emmy as my goal. Getting nominated isn't enough. It's not enough. I mean, it would be nice to say that I am Emmy nominated, because there are, people working out there that can't say that they're Emmy nominated. So it's like, being nominated would be nice, but I would rather win, I would rather win, because just saying you're nominated, I mean, if you're saying you're nominated before the awards have happened, it's like, okay, slay. But if you're saying you're nominated after the awards happen, that just means you lost. Which, listen, being nominated is a big deal, but I would rather win. I'm here for the dubs, okay? So I would rather win than just be nominated. However, if anyone's listening, I don't know who would be listening to this, being nominated, I will accept it. I will accept it. So that's another one of my goals. And then another one is to move, which I feel like a lot of these are very attainable. Some of them are harder than others. Like, it wouldn't really take that much for me to read more books, especially considering I have a library card now, so I wouldn't even have to pirate them this time around. So it's like, that one's easy. Watching more movies in the theaters. There are movies that I want to see. They're just not coming to these theaters. Like, I really want to see The Brutalist. It got nominated, or no, it won. It won a Golden Globe. And I'm like, okay, cool. It won a Golden Globe. Certainly it'll get a wide release. Which, by the way, I think it is still getting a wide release. It's not getting released in IMAX here, though, because there was, like, the whole IMAX announcement, and I went, and I looked down the list, and Mississippi was nowhere to be found, so it's like, whatever. I'll just have to watch it in normal format, I guess. Which, still, who knows if it's even gonna... I would hope so, now that it's gotten more, I guess, notoriety, but I wish I lived in a place that had, like, an art housey theater that showed something other than, like, the same kids' movies over and over. Because, listen, I'm not going to get into it, but these aren't even remotely art housey. These are winning awards. There are several, over the past, I'll say 3 years, movies, feature-length films that have won awards that I've straight up not come to the theater here in the capital city of Mississippi. Like, come on. That's, anyway. I just want to see The Brutalist. That's it. Yeah. And also maybe there will be times where a movie will come to the theater and I'll see it on the Fandango app and I'm like, oh, okay. And then it'll leave the theater. And then after it's left the theater, I'll start hearing, all the reviews about it, a certain movie, specifically The Substance. People are raving about The Substance, and it came to the theaters. I just didn't watch it. And now I'm like, man, I should have watched it. Another one is Spencer. Well, actually, when did that come out? 2021? Was I here when it came out? I actually don't know. I might have not been living here when it came out. So in that case, I'll give myself some grace. But it is certainly up there with Amadeus, as it's getting close as being one of my favorite of all time movies. Speaking of Amadeus, I saw, what was it, this morning or yesterday morning, and I got really excited because I thought, finally, they're re-releasing it for its 40th anniversary. They are not re-releasing it for its 40th anniversary. They are, there's a 4K home release, but, like, I don't have a CD player. I don't have a Blu-ray player. What am I going to do with that? I just want to see it in the theater. And it looked really good, too. And it's the theatrical cut. The version that was on Netflix, and I think most of streaming for the longest time, is the director's cut. That's the only version that I've seen. And people say they don't like the director's cut. I haven't seen the theatrical cut to be able to compare So I don't know. Maybe I'll want to see the theatrical cut at some point. I know they said it made the movie really long because the director's cut of Amadeus is like, I think, over 3 hours. It's pretty long. It's a pretty long movie. But yeah, I'm looking over here because I have the poster on my wall and it's crooked and it's not in a frame either. I really need to put it in a frame because I'm scared that when I take this poster down and I try to take the command strips off of it that are on it, it's gonna tear. I fear that it might tear. I really just need to get a poster frame for it and hang it up like an adult instead of a friggin' college student with some blue tack on my wall, but whatever. I think those are all of my goals. Those are my goals for the year. Those are things that I want to achieve. So far, well, actually, no, I'm not on a roll for movies because, I've only seen one, and it was the one that I saw yesterday, which is The Last Showgirl. Brief review about it. Some people really did not like the cinematography, and I can get it. I can understand. It is very claustrophobic. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really like claustrophobic cinematography. Like, give me a wide shot, please. Like, I get it if you're doing that to, like, set the mood, but for the plot of this movie, it doesn't need to be, the shots don't need to be that close. I'm not gonna lie. Eventually, however, it does, widen up a little bit, and it's not all, like, extreme close-ups on Pam Anderson, but, it is it's very claustrophobic in the beginning. First of all, tight hour 38. Let's bring back the 90-minute movie, please. I'm begging you, bring back the 90-minute movie. Not every movie needs to be 2 hours. Not every movie needs to be 3 hours. Some movies, okay, I'll let you be over 2 hours. I know I was talking about The Brutalist, and that's literally, 3 hours? Close to 3 hours, or like a little bit over 3 hours. The Brutalist is long. There's an intermission in it, though. So I've heard. I haven't seen it, obviously, to be able to confirm this, but there might be an intermission in there somewhere, maybe. Which I think is good for a movie that's, like, either over or close to 3 hours, because that's just a lot to be sitting in a theater. Like, if you're at home, like, whatever, you can pause it, get up and pee. But, like, you're in a theater, you get up and pee, you're gonna miss the movie, So, but I'm begging for Hollywood to allow people to pitch their tight 90-minute movies, please. Let's go back to a tight hour 30. When did that stop being the standard? They say, oh, it's still the standard. No, it isn't. Apparently not. Because why am I seeing all these 2-hour friggin' movies being put out? They don't need to be that long. Why do they need to be that long? Give me an hour and 30 minutes and 6 minutes for credits, and I'll be fine. Hour 36, that's good enough for me. Some stories don't need 2 hours to be told, and I feel like The Last Showgirl, being that it was, I think, an hour and 38 minutes, it made use of its time. Honestly, it could have cut out some of those, wandering around Las Vegas scenes, but they probably put those in there so I could, meet the time quota or whatever. So, it's like... Anyways, some people didn't like the cinematography. It grew on me after a while. Also, the fact that, it's very obviously shot with film. And, a lot of the times when a movie is shot with film, you can't really tell. This one, it looks like they went somewhere, found some old Kodak stock, took it out of storage from like 30, 40 years ago, and used that. It was like very grainy. There was a lot of noise. But also at the same time, I think I can see the intention for it if I could put my film student hat on. If I could put my film analysis hat on, I think they, shot it in, kind of antiquated film stock because, the story centers around Pamela Anderson and all these other young women who are working at some, theater in Las Vegas. Oh, spoilers, I guess, for The Last Showgirl. If you don't want to be spoiled, then, skip forward a little bit. Do what you have to do. But basically, it centers around Pam Anderson, and, she's the oldest showgirl in this one show on the Vegas Strip called the Razzle Dazzle that's been going since been going for a while. She joined in the 80s. She was one of the longest serving dancers on the team. She built her whole, identity around it. But, there's not that many showgirl type shows on the strip anymore, which I didn't look this up, but I do want to know, like, are there no more, like, showgirl shows on the strip? And it doesn't really tell you necessarily when the movie is supposed to take place, but given the fact that Pamela Anderson has, like, a pink Razor flip phone, I would assume it's probably somewhere in the 2000s, something like that. Maybe it's somewhere in the 2000s, based on the phone alone, because nothing else really indicates. There's, like, no timestamps or anything, date stamps or anything like that. So I'd assume it takes place kind of in the 2000s. So, like, are there no more showgirl shows in Vegas? Like, can you not see the girlies in the plumes and the boas and sparkly bras? Because if not, that is kind of sad. I kind of would have wanted to see that if I were a person that would go to Las Vegas, but currently there's not really a whole lot for me there. So yeah, they're like the last showgirl show on the strip. They've been going for a very long time. Pam Anderson joined in the 80s. She's still currently working there at her age. And, she's very clearly the oldest among the dancers. And it's like, it's a woman grappling with the fact that she has aged out of her passion, which, I guess that would really kind of be, not apply to, but, at a certain point in film history, once a woman turned, like, 40, she was just, like, too old to be in movies all of a sudden. Because if you think about it, there are a lot of older women who are actors and who are, like, killing it in their roles. But back in the, like, golden age, the golden era of Hollywood, once a woman aged out, there's basically no roles for her anymore. And that would kind of, start a lot of older actresses. Well, really it was just Pamela Anderson and Jamie Lee Curtis who were, like, the older actresses. And they've been acting for, like, a while, I would say. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know much about Pamela Anderson. Was she on Baywatch? I'm not really sure. I have to look her up. Because, I know Pamela Anderson as, like, being Pamela Anderson, but, who is... She's Canadian? Slay. Let me see. What did Pamela Anderson do? It's all about the showgirl. Gosh, come on. Show me her filmography. Or something. Here we go. IMDb. I'm holding my phone out like this because it's plugged up. And the cord is, like, all the way on the other side of the room. Let me see. What's her, like, most prominent thing? I can't freaking see this. Okay, Baywatch. Yes. Baywatch. She was in Baywatch. Which, she got that role for, being Pamela Anderson. And so, honestly, it feels not necessarily autobiographical because, maybe it is. I don't know Pamela Anderson's story, but she got this role, this very iconic role of Baywatch in the 80s for being young and blonde and really hot. And it's like now she's a certain age and she's not young anymore. She's still blonde and she is hot to somebody. Let me tell you that much. Somebody, probably a lot of somebodies, still finds Pamela Anderson very attractive. But, being that we live in a society, I hate pulling out that we live in a society, but being that we live in a society, once you hit a certain age as a woman, you're just like chopped liver, And so, yeah, I think it could be maybe a little bit autobiographical. And I thought because of that, I thought it was a good movie. I liked it. I liked it a lot. And Dave Bautista is oof, girl, I can't even speak. Dave Bautista is in it, and let me tell you something. I don't know, man. That's all I gotta say. Dave Bautista is, like, a really good actor. For being among the pantheon of WWE people turned actors, what do we got? The most prominent we have are John Cena and The Rock. And John Cena, he can do a comedic role. He could slay a comedic role. And The Rock is The Rock in every single role that he does. But Dave Bautista has the range. Let me tell you something. I want to see, I need to see this man's filmography. I've seen, what is it? One of the Avengers movies. One of them. It doesn't matter. They're all the same to me. I've seen that one. He was good in that. I'll give him that. But I think he's been in a couple like thrillers. There's A Knock at the Cabin, where M. Night Shyamalan or something. He's been in a few movies. And of, the WWE wrestlers turned actors, he's probably the best actor out of all of them. He's not the highest grossing. Obviously that would be The Rock. But I want to see other things that he's in, And it's not just because I find him attractive. It's because I think he's a good actor. Let me stop. Okay, there are other things on this. Oh, I actually got through most of my topics. So, one of my goals for 2025, I was about to say 2024, girl, I was going to forget what year it was. One of my goals for 2025 was to read more books. And I'm already on a good pace because last year, technically I read 2 books last year. I reread My Dark Vanessa, because I was on a plane. I was going to Chicago and I needed something to read, and I didn't bring any books with me, and I was sitting in the airport waiting for my plane to leave, and I was like, oh shoot, I need like a book or something. So I had my tablet with me, and I have Calibre, the book thingy, the app, the application that you can use to read ebooks on like a computer. I have that, so I went and I found, on the sites, I went and I found My Dark Vanessa, because honestly I didn't want to like try to get into a new book on a plane. I just needed something to read, and I just felt like rereading that for some reason. Devastating, by the way, utterly depressing, like good god. Ugh, it's difficult to read, I'll say that much. And also, I've talked about My Dark Vanessa before on the pod, so I'm not going to get into it too much. But at the end of last year, so like last month, I was perusing on, not Storyblocks, that's stock footage, Storygraph, for a new book to read, because their recommendation algorithm, it's okay. I have read a couple books that I've liked based on, their recommendations, which I know they have personalized recommendations. I don't think I've ever used those, but I go off of recommendations based on other books that I've read, and there have been a couple that I've read. I'm trying to look over here, and ones that I've seen solely from Storygraph, not from YouTubers or, certain authors that I already sort of knew about. But My Last Innocent Year and Her Pretty Face, I think, were a couple of books that I saw on Storygraph. And I mean, they were fine. They didn't really knock it out of the... Well, I don't know. The jury's still out on Her Pretty Face, which I have a sort of review short on this YouTube channel, I think. Yes. What was I talking about? Anyways, I'd seen a book on Storyblocks. Not Storyblocks, stop calling it Storyblocks. Storygraph. I use Storyblocks more than I use Storygraph, so, it makes sense. They both start with story. Anyways, the book is Liars, and I don't have a physical copy to hold up because I read the ebook, but the book is Liars by Sarah Manguso, and okay. I need to formulate my thoughts, all right? So the book is about a woman. She is a writer. And I read a lot of books about writers, I feel like. I don't think that's true, actually. I don't know why I said that. I don't know. It's a book about a writer. And she is, against the idea of being a wife and a mother. And then she becomes a wife and a mother. And she hates it. Predictably. Because, okay, it's, and, I don't know. It's hard for me to say I like the book because I enjoyed the process of reading it, but it was also very frustrating to read at the same time because you're reading about this woman. It's told from her point of view. She gets with this guy. From the beginning, you can tell that their relationship is not great. And you can tell that he does not support her 100%, And you would think after that, she wouldn't marry this guy and have a baby with him, but then she does. And it's like, this man doesn't even like you. What? Why are you still here? And in that regard, I will say this book feels very realistic. Like, I haven't experienced this myself, thank God, but I can tell that there's probably a lot of women out there who have had relationships very similar to the main character of this book, where they meet a guy and, they start banging a lot because, that's how their relationship pretty much starts in the book. She meets the guy who would become her husband. They start banging a lot. And, that part is great. But they low-key don't really like each other. But they get together anyways because societal expectations, I don't know. And then the wife, both of these people are creatives because the husband was like a filmmaker, even though I don't think he makes a single film in the book. But he's a filmmaker and she's a writer. She's more successful than him, and he resents her for it. And again, these two people straight up don't like each other, but they're still together for some reason. And then you get to the part where she's pregnant and it's like, why did you do that? You two don't even like each other. Like, why are we here? It's like, I saw a lot of reviews where people were saying that they wanted to grab the main character by the shoulders and friggin' shake her. Because it's like, what are you doing? Why do you keep putting yourself in this situation with this man who doesn't like you? And it's like, this woman is clearly very deeply in denial about how bad their relationship is, but she just keeps on going along with it. And, she has a kid and, her love for this child blossoms throughout watching it grow up. But it's like her doo-doo head husband is like not really helping her all throughout it. And it's like, what does he do other than cause you problems? Because it's like, not only does this man just like straight up not like her, but because of him and because of the fact that this man cannot hold a job down, despite the fact that, he's a creative and he's starting all of these venture capital funded companies, he moves this woman across country like 2 times. There is, eventually, this woman becomes hip to the fact that this man straight up doesn't like her, and she reminds herself, in this relationship, I have moved 5 times in 8 years. 5 times in 8 years. And 3 of those times were with a young child. Like, this guy, he doesn't like her. It's like, why are these 2 people together? They don't like each other. One of them clearly doesn't no, it's not even one versus the other. They don't like each other and they don't respect one another. And it's like, why are you together? Break up before it's too late. And eventually they do end up getting a divorce. But also, something that became very apparent is that the main character's husband is from Canada, right? And constantly throughout this, when she is, pregnant and after she gave birth and she's like postpartum, he keeps making trips back and forth to Canada, spending weeks in friggin' Calgary. And it's like, first of all, what is it in Calgary, Canada that you need to be there for? And at first it's like, he has a company there. But no. He's having an affair this whole time. And after a certain point, I was thinking, okay, this man keeps going to Calgary. This man has another family in Calgary. Like, what's going on? And to top it all off, it's his brother's wife that he's having an affair with. So not only is he blowing up his whole family, he's blowing up his whole family. For what? For what? It's just a depressing portrait of 2 people who clearly aren't compatible, clearly do not like each other, and clearly do not respect one another until they finally, blessedly, get a divorce. And not only that, the husband tries to gaslight her into thinking that she's like going insane so that he can get custody of their son. And it's like, this is a train wreck of a book, but it's brilliant. Because again, it's very realistic. Like, I feel like there are far too many people who are in this kind of relationship right now, and they have not yet figured out that their husband has a whole other family in Calgary. You know? It's like, it's realistic, but it's also so frustrating. Oh, I hate both of them. I hate both of the main characters, because why would you subject yourself to this for nearly a decade? Like, you could have got out while the getting was good. You know, when you got that fellowship to Greece and he acted like a piss baby about it, that should have been your cue to leave. But you stayed. And you made a child with this man. For what? For what? 10 years of anguish is what you got out of this. And that is it. That is it. I hope it was worth it. I mean, you got a kid out of it. Congrats, I guess. But good God. Anyways, that was Liars by Sarah Manguso. Would I recommend it? I don't know. I really don't know, honestly. I will say this. The fact that it wasn't broken up into chapters made it very easy to read, because I just had to keep reading. Because, like, okay, what train wreck of a thing is going to happen next? You know? So it's like, I just had to keep reading because I had to make sure that the main character finally woke the freak up to what was going on in her life. And I mean, eventually she did, but it took 10 years. So it's like, oh, God. This, yeah. It's a book filled with unlikable people. Yeah. And you know, the main character is unlikable because she just is so naive and in so much denial for a man who doesn't like her, doesn't respect her, and is honestly probably really mid. So it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Anyways, enough about that book. From that book to a book that I do recommend, and a book that was a whole lot better, and a book that I have a physical copy of. I'm slapping it. So my dad gave me a $50 gift card for Christmas this year, as he does for most years. No shade, but you know, no shade. So I was like, okay, cool. I want to read more books. I'm gonna buy some more books. Why not? And I went to the bookstore with the intention of buying one fiction book and one nonfiction book. I bought 2 fiction books. I still want to buy a nonfiction book, but you know, anyways. But one book that I saw was Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. So a little backstory on this. So when I was at my last job, and I was given very little work to do, for some reason, I would spend a lot of my time on Wikipedia, just reading articles, expanding my knowledge, because there's literally nothing else for me to do, like, at all. I've talked about this at length, and I refuse to talk about it more, but in that, I saw that there is a list, or something like that. There's a Wikipedia list of, like, slave narratives. And so I looked down the list, and I saw there's this book called Kindred, and I saw in the little blurb that pops up that it was, like, a sci-fi novel. And I was like, what? There's a sci-fi slave narrative? Okay, let me read more. And so I read the entire synopsis for this book, and I was fascinated. However, for whatever reason, maybe because, you know, I had read the entire synopsis of the book beginning to end, so therefore I vaguely knew how it ended, I wasn't like, oh, I need to read this. Because honestly, okay, for me, for the media that I watch, and this has been a rule that I've instituted with myself since 2020, given, I mean, if you know what happened that year, then you know, that I was not going to consume any more Negro suffering content. Like, I was done with the Negro suffering. I've witnessed enough Negro suffering. I've lived enough Negro suffering. No more. I'm not watching any more slave movies. I'm not reading anything about slaves. I'm not reading anything about the civil rights movement. I'm not watching anything about the civil rights movement. I am done. I grew up in Selma, Alabama. I've been inundated with all of this utterly depressing information for pretty much my entire life. I want to have a little bit of joy in my escapism. So I was like, I finally put my foot down in 2020 and I was like, no more Negro suffering at all. No, I'm not doing it. But I broke this rule with this book because the synopsis, and I'm gonna try not to, okay, there might be spoilers. But I still want you to read this. Because, it is Negro suffering, but it's also Negro perseverance in a way. So this book is about a woman who one day finds herself transported back in time to slavery times on the plantation that her ancestors lived on. And so at first, basically, so the main character's name is Dana, and she gets transported back in time. She disappears out of her current time, which is, this book came out in 1979, and the book is set in 1976. So she gets transported from 1976 to like the 1800s, like before the Civil War. And, she gets transported back in time every time this one particular character finds themselves in peril. And the first time, the kid, his name is Rufus, he's like about to drown. And she's like transported back in time and she saves him from drowning. And she almost, gets shot by Rufus's dad. And that brings her back. And basically, and this is like a huge spoiler, by the way, cover your ears, do something, because I do want you to read this book. But basically, she finds out that every time Rufus is about to die, she gets transported back in time. And every time she's about to die, she gets transported back to her own time. And she uses that at least once in her advantage to transport herself back to her own time. And essentially, what ends up happening is that she spends cumulatively, I want to say, I wasn't counting or anything like that, but I think she spends something like 2 years in total. Obviously, these aren't 2 years, maybe more than 2 years. I don't know. She spends a few years in the past, because the first time she's transported back, she's there for like a few minutes, and then she comes back like seconds later in her own time. But the time that she spends in the past progressively gets longer and longer, where she's there for like months. And while she's there, and she figures out that, okay, Rufus, the son of the slave owner, and eventually the slave owner, this is my ancestor, right? And she ends up meeting her black ancestor, because this is a black woman. She ends up meeting her black ancestor, Alice, and she realizes, oh, I have to make sure that my direct ancestor is born so that I can preserve my bloodline, make sure that I don't, blip out of existence. And I get, it's like the grandfather paradox, basically. You have to make sure that her ancestor, whose name is Hagar, is born, and therefore, her has to make sure she's safe and make sure that her existence is, I don't know, secured, essentially. And another thing that I like about this is that it does not spend too much time explaining the circumstances around this. It's like, we don't really need to know how she's going back in time, like the scientific mechanisms of it all, which I appreciate a lot, because I kind of stay away from sci-fi because I feel like a lot of it is just like a lot of explaining like science. And it's like, do I need to know why this time traveling mechanism works? Not really. Obviously, I'm already suspending my disbelief because she's being transported back in time. So like, I don't need it to really be over-explained to me. And I like that this doesn't even really explain it at all. Aside from the fact that she goes back in time anytime Rufus is in danger, and she comes back to her own time period anytime she is in danger. And also, at some point, her white husband, Kevin, comes back in time with her because he's holding on to her as she's like, blacking out. And something that crazy ends up happening is that, she ends up going back in time with her husband, Kevin. And of course, considering, she's black, he's white, they're married in the present time, which is 1976. But obviously, they can't really be married in the past, so he has to kind of be like her slave owner. It's like, it's not that convoluted. I really just explained it right there. But once she goes forward in time, he's not there to go forward with her. So she ends up leaving him in the past. And we end up finding out that he is waiting for her for like 5 years in the past before she comes back. So it's like, it's honestly, it's a great novel. I also sort of have, it's an informal rule about not reading books that are like too old, because I feel like, sometimes you read a book from, really, honestly, the only problem I have is with the classics, like stuff from, let's say, the 1800s, the Charles Dickenses and the Bronteses and the Austens. I just feel like some of the writing from that time is a little bit archaic, and it kind of trips me up in my head as I'm reading it. I can't really connect with it in that way. You cannot tell, aside from the obvious, references to it being 1976, you can't tell that this book was written in the 70s, And another thing that I really appreciate is that, and I don't mean this in a diss at all, but this book has a very low reading level. I feel like if I had to guess, the reading level of this book might be like 7th grade, maybe, if that, And I like that, and I'm not gonna lie, I am guilty of it too, but I feel like a lot of writers, past and present, are doing a little bit too much with their writing, and sometimes you don't need to. This is a sci-fi novel technically, but there's no like turbo encabulators in it or anything like that. No complicated technology. There's not really that many like, I don't know, big words or anything like that. And I think this book is like really approachable, if you are, I don't know, 7th grader. Actually, I don't know. I don't know if this would be appropriate for a 7th grader. How old is a 7th grader? I know I was like, no. I was 12 in the 7th grade, but also I had like a late birthday or an early birthday. I can't remember which one it was. Basically, I was pretty much one of the youngest people in my class, like always. So, would I have read this when I was in the 7th grade? I don't know. That depends. But honestly, this book is so good. When I was done with it, I was like, I want to reread this. Like, that's how good it was. I greatly enjoyed this very much. I want to read some more Octavia E. Butler material. I don't exactly have book money in the budget, and I went and looked, right? Because like I said, I have a library card. I went and looked, and for whatever reason, there are a lot of audiobooks of Octavia E. Butler's in the Jackson Hines library system, but maybe like 1 or 2 of her like actual books. Like the regular, print or I guess ebook version of Kindred isn't in our like library ebook system, but the audiobook is, which I found odd. I don't know about that. But anyways. So the other book that I have is one that I have a whole lot less background on. It's a hardcover. It's This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things by Naomi Wood. I haven't started reading it yet. It's not very long at all. It is, oh, and it's a large print. Good God. It's $2.41, and look at the size of this text. It's huge. So it's 241 pages with like large print text, bigger than in here in Kindred. Goodness gracious. Why is the text so big? My lord, when did this book come out? Hold on. Because I feel like, it came out in 2024. Interesting. I don't know why the print is so large, especially considering there aren't that many pages. So I guess that means this will be a quick read. But once I'm done with that, I do know Sherry Frankie, which is the daughter of Ruby Frankie, has put out a memoir. And I've heard it's good, as good of a memoir about a topic like that could be. And wouldn't you know it, my battery is dying. So anyways, the Sherry Frankie memoir, I think, is going to be on the to read list. But before this camera dies, this has been the, I think, 39th episode of the Running My Mouth podcast. I've been your host, Erin. Thank you for allowing me to run my mouth. Follow me on Twitter, because if you aren't following me on Twitter, you're only getting half the story. I didn't talk about Drag Race. There's not much to talk about, so it's fine. And that's it. My battery is dying, and that's really unfortunate. And that'll be all from me.